How many hundreds of millions did you oversee?
It was around 550 million.
Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves, is ready to go. Talking to people you want to know. Face to face, one on one. Get the story and have some fun with Rhett Palmer.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
It is I, the mayor of the airwaves. Never, in the course of history, have so few done so much for so many. Yes, and my friend is in here, the governor. Governor's in the airways. Here he is, live and in person, and he's David Walsh.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Great to have you in here. And we have a lady who used to make multiple appearances on your show, and she formerly headed up the Social Security Commissioner. You were a Social Security Commissioner.
Yes, I was.
Oversaw $550 million, which is a trifling amount compared to today, I suppose. And welcome to the show. How are you? Joanne?
I'm great and happy to be here, Rhett.
Joanne Barnhart.
Barnhart.
Sounds famous, doesn't it?
It does.
This just sounds like a poet. Joanne Barnhart. Yes. So how are you?
I'm good.
Well, great to have you here. And we have a new year before us. Of course, we're at the age where David is on Social Security, but he gets a third more than me, and I'm irritable about that. He gets like almost the top amount. And so there he is, living the great life, right?
No question.
He's 97 years of age, and still, look at him. He's got his, what do you call the material that his jacket is? I love that.
Cashmere.
Cashmere jacket with crisp, nice, clean shirt. He goes into work at 97. For all you sloths out there, he goes into work every day at 97. You're unbelievable. He reads.
We're here to talk about.
Well, they need to know about you too. But Joanne, it's great to have you here. Yeah. Now, Joanne, of course, headed up Social Security. So recently, I had Seamus Bruner on with his new book, Oligarchs or Control Oligarchs. Have you finished it yet?
No.
You see, the problem is too many people gave him books for Christmas. So he's perused the book. Actually, I'm using perused in the wrong way. Perused means you read it in its entirety, but we use perused to mean it over.
Perused does not mean you did it in entirety.
Yes, it does. You have the wrong meaning. Okay,
ask Siri.
Ask Siri. Okay, let's go for it. Okay, hey Siri, what does peruse mean?
This is
read something in a thorough way, in a thorough or careful way. He has spent countless hours in libraries perusing art history books and catalogs. You see, we all use it.
But not finishing. They don't say it's finishing.
Look, you're not going to
use that.
You're not getting out on a technicality here. I'm sorry. You had it.
Fact is
Where's my
fact.
buzzer? You had it wrong. That's that.
A fact is a fact.
No, but we do use. Don't you think perusing means to you kind of like going
scan
over?
it? To me, it means kind of scan it.
So I think they need to change the dictionary meaning
Yeah.
because it has changed. Yeah. Isn't it funny about words?
Maybe it's a secondary meaning. It's possible.
Do I have to look? See, the problem is I have my hearing aids on, so now she told me in my headset what we needed to hear, but I don't know how to transfer it unless I turn off the Bluetooth. So you guys could hear it, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And by the way, I want to let everybody know I was ashamed to ever think I would ever need hearing aids. And Barbara's been after me for years. And they also said it affects your mental health if you don't get them.
If you can't hear, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You are amazing. You don't use hearing aids, do you?
No.
Because you heard, I said something very soft. I noticed you heard it right away. You have great hearing. But anyway, so I'm not embarrassed to have them. I love them. As a matter of fact, I can go into a restaurant now and I can listen to music, watch a news show, and I can have a piece of pizza. Well, I can't eat pizza now, but I can eat scrambled eggs, all new teeth. Anyway, so and I can listen to the news or whatever. It's really kind of cool, and it goes right in here. Do you ever use this for listening to things? He has the same set that I have. Elite Hearing Center. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now let's turn off the Bluetooth here, and then let's see, Bluetooth.
This is Radio Red, Technocrat.
Techno.
Oh.
Well, the Bible says, confess things that are not as though they were. It's coming, forthcoming, right? Anyway, so, hey, Siri, what is the meaning of peruse?
Peruse is a formal term. It means read something, typically in a thorough or careful way.
There you go. A thorough or careful way. You see, so we've been misusing the word. Okay, first, before we hear about Social Security, would you tell us your Elvis story? We're in the back making coffee this morning, and she said she's from Memphis. Well, you know, Memphis is Graceland, where Elvis was, and Elvis was, I believe, reared there, right? I mean,
He was actually born in Tupelo, Mississippi, but basically in Tennessee. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So tell us in its entirety, all details.
Okay. Well, the year was 1956, so I was 6 years old. And my 5-year-old sister and I had gone to church with our grandmother on a Sunday. And Elvis was not living in Graceland yet. He had a rather modest-looking home, but it did have one of those big iron fences around it with a giant gate.
They had to put that up because of his sudden fame.
Yes. And when we got to the house, well, everybody in Memphis was an Elvis fan in those days.
Oh, yeah.
When we got to the house, there were throngs of teenagers just lining the fence. And we got out of the car, and as I told you earlier, my sister and I had on little pink ruffled front dresses with the big petticoats and black patent leather shoes because it was 1956, and we'd just come from church, white gloves, you know. And all of a sudden, the front door opens, and out comes Nick Adams, Nick Adams was the star of The Rebel. Johnny Yuma was a rebel.
Ah.
You like music, so.
Yeah.
And he came out and he opened the gate and he said to us, Elvis says you and your grandmother can come in. So we went into the
Out
house.
of all those people, he looks out
yes.
the window, likes those, invite those two in.
I think it was just because we were little and we were dressed exactly alike.
Oh.
We were, of course, called Irish twins. We were just 11 months apart. So we were very close in looks and size and everything. We go in and Elvis is there. He greets us. I remember this all as though it happened yesterday, Rhett. I mean, seriously.
I can imagine.
I always say that I remember my life in what I call vignettes. So it's almost like you click a Polaroid photo. I can picture him sitting on the floor. We sat on the floor of his living room.
Sat on the floor?
On the floor of his living room. He had his legs crossed, so my grandmother sat on the couch, but my sister and I sat on the floor. And he got his guitar and played music for us and sang.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he gave us a tour of the house, and in those days, he had the famous dark purple bedroom, and he had a shelf that was covered with teddy bears, because, you know, he had that song, Be My Teddy Bear. I think that's where the teddy bear thing came from. There's just teddy bears all around the bedroom. And then we went back in the living room, and my sister and I grew up acting in professional theater. And
You did?
Yes, we did.
Professional?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was an equity company. Anyway, so my sister was a particularly good mimic, and she was also not shy at all. And my grandmother says to her, get up and do your Elvis imitation for Elvis. So she did. She got up. I always say it showed the difference in the two of us because she was thrilled to get up and be the showman. And I said, even though I was only 6, I was old enough to be embarrassed that my sister was doing this. Because I remember.
What song did she, you remember what?
She sang You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. And she did the air guitar thing and danced all around. And I can picture Elvis
You
sitting.
ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Yes, exactly. And I can picture him sitting there, like throwing his head back and laughing. And so when we were getting ready to leave, again, it was 1956, my grandmother had one of those little Instamatic box cameras with one button, you know. And we went outside and we took pictures with Elvis. And he said, you know, when you get those developed, if you bring them back, I'll autograph them. So a couple weeks later, we went back, went up to the gate. They let us in again, and he autographed them for us. And I have them hanging here in my house in Vero now.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see them sometime. Wow, that's great. You should bring them in for show and tell.
I will. Next time
Yeah.
I come, I will.
Yeah,
I
God
will.
willing. Okay, so that's great. Elvis Presley himself. One time I was listening to a station that I was on about 20 years ago during the day, and I said, hey, I'm going to go buy that record and put it on my show. It was, I saw you crying in the chapel, you were crying tears of joy, or whatever it was, anyway. Now I'm done forever after, in the presence of the Lord, or something like that. Chapel of the Lord. So anyway, I go out to Best Buy, and I said, I'm looking for the song. The young man there, a young man who you would think had no interest in Elvis. He says, do you know we sell more Elvis Presley CDs than anything else, and they're all the gospel records. And to this day, literally tens of millions are sold of Elvis's. I don't know if every year that's true, but on average, you know. Okay, how about this? Hey, Siri, how many Elvis Presley records are still sold every year?
Amazing what you can find
Okay.
out.
Just made that more.
I found this on the web for how many Elvis Presley records are still sold every year.
1 billion, over 1 billion
Every year?
Elvis Presley records. No, not a year.
Oh.
Not a year are sold. If she would open. I hate it when she gives me up. Anyway. It won't open.
A billion is one hell of a lot.
Well, anyway.
Probably
Yeah.
a million.
Yeah. Although that kid just came out with the Richmond from Richmond, a Richmond above Richmond. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen
But
that.
you heard about it?
Yes, I have.
He's a red-haired, red-bearded. Did you see him? You're not keeping up? You just, I don't understand. But anyway, so he had, I know it's over 100 million just on one format, which I think is YouTube. Hey, Noah, sorry to interrupt you drinking your morning tea in there, but could you find out Richmond above Richmond, how many views has that video had?
We went over this like 2 weeks ago. It's like 60 million.
60 million.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, I thought I read over 100 million, but 60 million.
iTunes buys, not YouTube video views.
Okay. Hey Siri, how many people have viewed the Richmond above Richmond video song?
I found this on the web.
56 million views. He's right.
Yep.
Okay. You got it right, Noah. All right, let's talk about Social Security, which this guy won't need any Social Security because 56 million views. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
If you only charge $10 a ticket to see him,
Yep.
he's
Tell us what he sang about.
Richmond Above Richmond is a song about, it's a working class song saying we're all being screwed, you know, that they're doing, the guys up in the guys and gals up in Washington, D.C. are there for themselves, and, we work for crap pay, and I think he uses some foul language in it. But the funny thing, or maybe SHIT, but the funny thing is wherever he goes now, he carries a Bible. And he reads something from the Bible. Is that wild?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, he declares the Lord, so it's kind of cool. Now, you're from Memphis.
Yes.
So you're like me. I mean, I didn't believe in Jesus till I was 29, but I had my conversion experience. And once you've had a radical, meeting up with the Lord, you won't deny him, even though they said they'll take off your head. Once you know him, you know him. If you don't know him and you don't know, then you haven't. You will know when Jesus said, make sure ye are born from above, because it's appointed once for man to die. But he said, you need to be born of your mother, but you need to be born of the Spirit in order to live eternally with God. So you know that. So you feel comfortable with that sort of language.
I do.
Because now, which is amazing, because you're a woman of intellect. I mean, you're a bright woman. Where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Tennessee and then transferred to the University of Delaware and graduated from there.
Okay, and what kind of a degree did you get? Economics?
Everyone always thinks that, Rhett, but I actually was an English major and a drama minor.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, because, I tell people English is the most important subject.
I think so.
I was a high school dropout, and some older man at 14, I was living in a rooming house on my own. It's a long story. Had no adult supervision. He said, look, somebody like him, and said, read. Knowledge is power. And so I read anything I could get my hands on.
I had an English teacher who was in high school who was a Phi Beta Kappa. And next to her desk, there was a desk, and on it was the New York Times every morning. It was quite something. She asked me one time to read from it. So I read something, and the girl I was courting said, "You must have practiced." No, because I read so much that it wasn't a stretch.
He wanted to be in radio, and he certainly has the voice. Talk real low, David. Say, this is the mayor of the airwaves.
I am not a performing donkey. Okay.
See that? Pride. Pride. Okay. But anyway, so he goes to get a job in New York City at WNEW reading. It's a classical music station.
No, WNEW was not. WNEW was the first music station with Martin Block, and he had the Make Believe Ballroom, which was he played records, and he spoke about the artist as he did it, and then he did commercials. He did a commercial on a Citroen one morning, and I wanted to go buy one after I heard him. He was so persuasive. It was quite extraordinary, but it was WNYC. WNYC was a classical station, and that's where I went. Well, I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and the instructor took me over to WNYC.
Because he was so impressed with him.
And so, but I couldn't pronounce the names of the
Tchaikovsky or whatever it is.
Gounod. I didn't know what to make out of Gounod, and so I failed the test. And
But you should have said, "Give it to me. Let me go home and practice these. I'll come back and I will learn them."
I think I'll do that.
But you didn't. Instead he put his tail between his legs and went off and got into the automobile business.
No, I went in my brilliance, I moved from New York City, the mecca of radio, and went to West Virginia. West Virginia is not the place to go to when you have a general American accent, because they say police.
Police now, come on over here. You're going to get a ticket if you drive fast like that again.
It was so. They have a stack of commercials on the table next to you, and you pick them up and do one commercial at a time. Piggly Wiggly Supermarket.
Piggly Wiggly.
I'm familiar with Piggly
Yeah.
Wiggly.
You probably grew up on Piggly Wiggly.
We
yeah.
did. We had Piggly
That's
Wiggly.
just
so.
what I did on air. I go, what is this, a joke or something? Oh, God.
Piggly Wiggly. Yeah, I remember going to Key West or visiting my grandmother in Dunedin, and that's when Piggly Wiggly was prevailed in Florida until this man came along and started Publix. And what a great service they did to this state.
Really, Publix is terrific.
We
I
don't-
shop there.
Yeah. We don't have any supermarkets like that up in state New York. I mean, where the bakery goods are good. Just it's so well done, and it's employee owned.
I know. And if you talk to the employees there, everybody likes working there. They get treated really well. They get paid well, good benefits. In fact, they close on some of the major holidays that other stores don't. And I can't remember. It might have been 4th of July. Anyway, I was talking to some of the employees in there when I was shopping for the occasion, and they were telling me how Publix is. There's certain days of the year, certain holidays they've never been opened. And it's one of the reasons people love them, frankly, because they
it's
respect
funny
that
'cause
and they want their employees to have the time with their family.
Well, Christmas Day, I can remember this year thinking, and I said to Barbara, I said, this is what it used to be like growing up. They were blue days.
Yes,
And
right.
nothing was opened on a Sunday.
Nothing's on
But you
Sunday,
know what?
I know.
It gave us all a breath from the insanity of the movement and the frenetic pace today. And you really, I don't know who's to blame for all this, but I was at Barnes & Noble down in Jensen Beach last night, and as I'm slowly getting my car about, 7:30 at night, and this guy comes just rushing in off the traffic and almost hits me and comes in driving like a maniac, and it's maniacal the way people drive today, even the females. It's really a shame because when females, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this, it's not, my mother said she didn't want to be emancipated. She says, I don't want to be, what's the word they were using back in the 60s? Women wanted to be.
Empowered.
Yeah, but the other word about made equal, I don't want to be equalized. What's the word they use? Anyway, she said, I want to maintain my superiority. Do you know that there are women that didn't want the vote? And you know what they said? These were upper class, highly educated women said, we don't want to become hard like men. We don't want to be out in the world. I mean, what a better choice. And now when you see women, I've literally had an older woman come up to me. I don't know, I must have ticked her off, something I did. Maybe I was guilty, I don't know. But she comes up to the red light. Imagine a lady like this age, going like this. It just looks reprehensible on a woman. It's just so
I think society has just become increasingly crass.
Yeah.
One of the things I miss a lot about the 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s is it was a politer world. It was
Yeah.
just a nicer world. And now everyone, and I really think it's because of the electronic communication, the texting and the emails. I read an article that says that people will be much more candid in an email or a text. They'll just write what they really think because they're not looking at you like we're looking
Right.
and sitting here together. So
Yeah.
it's real easy to be obnoxious with someone, frankly, if you're not having to look at them. And I think that has contributed to an overall demise of
We've gotten
just being
stupid
cordial.
in a way.
Yeah.
I was in a parking lot yesterday, and this young black family came out, and they had teenage daughters, maybe 15, 16, 17, two of them. And the mother, the father, and the two daughters all get out of the car, and they're all like this.
On the phone. Yeah.
They're not together. Being robbed, and everybody will think, oh, phooey. We need to get back to manners. You know what you said about manners, though? I'm working on a book, and he can tell you, we're on dignity. I'm in this whole thing I'm obsessed with dignity lately. I'll tell you why later on, but people don't realize you're having more fun in life if you have dignity. If I put you first, okay, you came in this morning, I offered you a cup of coffee. So I get to serve you. Well, there's joy in giving to another. If I just come in here selfishly, just make coffee for me, what joy is there in that? The joy is in the giving, and so everybody's me first. And in traffic, try it sometime. Now, up in Vermont, where I spend my summers, it's a liberal state. I'm a conservative. But I will tell you this, I don't know if it has to do with them being liberal or the fact that Stowe, Vermont's just a little snow community. And it's way up the top of the mountain. But when somebody steps off the curb, which is the same law there that it is here, they're starting to enact it here. But we're not really pedestrian friendly or
Right,
scooter friendly
right.
here.
Yeah.
Everybody's zoom, 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 zoom. You walk down the street to Publix, I used to live right here, and you feel like an oddity because you're walking. What, did his car break down? Is he going poor? Is he on welfare? What happened? Why is Rhett Palmer walking, And whereas in Italy or wherever, you feel comfortable walking, or in the big cities. But anyway, you step off the curb, and it's a curb, excuse me, and you step off and you stop. And I've noticed that, so I've taken on to this because everybody's very polite. Everybody lets each other out, coming out to the main street. There's no traffic lights in the little city of, anyway, so the village of Stowe. And, I'll be on, I remember I was on my way to the dentist or something. I'm in a rush. And somebody steps off the curb. Oh, geez, there's this old lady. She's got a cane. And then there comes a lady with a baby in the carriage. But you know what I say? I say, this is good for you, Rhett. They're first, you're not. You're late, so what? And you think about it, like a young boy held the door open for me recently going into the post office. And I said, oh, you're a gentleman and a scholar, thank you. Well, he just shined. He felt so good about himself. So anyway, we need to get back to politeness or giving each other dignity.
No, I agree. And we see that permeating over into politics, too, because now pretty much every discussion results and ends up with name calling. Both sides start calling each other names.
I love Donald Trump as far as his brain, and he's good for our economy. But really, he's the everybody says, well, he's a better president. He may be a better president than Reagan, but he certainly doesn't have the diplomacy of a Reagan.
No, definitely not. And I voted for Trump both times he ran. Yeah. And in 2020, even some of my Republican friends here were saying, how can you vote for him? He sends those awful tweets. He's crass and obnoxious at times and whatever. And I said, you know what? I'm voting for the leader of the free world, not the student council president. So I put the personality
That's right.
aside and went with the policies.
The student council. That's excellently said. But people, I remember when I was singing in a little, the Quality Inn in Albany, New York, when I was in my early 20s, and this waitress was there, and she taught me something I'll never forget. She said, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I've talked to some liberal family members and that's what I'll say that, and they jump all over. Yes. So they can't separate the intellect of Trump, who's good for the country, because he is. He comes off
his
rather.
policies are excellent.
And yet live and in person, you can ask the black gentleman who runs the elevator in Trump Tower in New York City, Mr. Trump treats me with great honor and dignity. And he does one-on-one. Why he behaves that way, I don't know. So anyway, hope you don't mind that we're talking about a gazillion things other than Social Security at this
It's fine
point.
with me.
We're just having fun. This is like The View, except we're not liberal. You ever seen
And
that?
hopefully more likable to the viewers.
The
or
funny thing is,
listeners.
Whoopi Goldberg has a new book coming out, and I want to read it because I read a book by her years and years ago. She may be a liberal. I don't like to think she's an extremist, but she is a bright person.
Who's this?
Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh,
I'd like to meet her. I bet you her and I would get along. We sat down calmly, looking each other in the eye and said, let's talk about it, okay? I can hear her say, no, Rhett, no, Rhett. So let's talk about Social Security. You had some questions the other day. I remember you saying, well, what were some of the questions we came up with when we were on the phone together?
is the Social Security staff any bigger now than when you were there?
I don't think it's much bigger. I can't give you exact numbers, but I believe it stayed pretty much even with what it was. I mean, you have to appreciate when I was there were 67,000 employees in Social Security.
67,000.
Yes, and that did not count the 13,000 that worked in the state disability determination offices, who also took, were overseen by the commissioner.
That's like you had to pay out $1 billion a week in the salary?
Oh, the
You've got
administrative.
67,000 times $1,
Yeah.
$67,000. So if you only made $10 for the day, that would be $670 million.
Right,
right?
right.
$10. We're talking about
We need that.
a salary of $2 billion, $3 billion a week.
We need that.
No,
too.
not a week. But I think our I'm trying to remember what our administrative budget was when I was there. Maybe 10 billion, something like that, to run Social Security. Interestingly enough, it's considered a very efficient government agency, because when you look at all the money Social Security takes in every year, less than 2% is actually spent on administrative costs.
That's wonderful.
It's very efficiently run. Yes.
Wow.
It is. Well, it was when I was there.
And let me ask you this. Now, we're all Republicans in this room, I presume?
Yes,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Except there was a man who lived up the street from me, and my mother used to buy our Christmas tree from Mrs. Roosevelt because she was selling those for a charity. And I was brought up in Poughkeepsie, but in Hyde Park. Now, the only thing to fear is fear itself. This guy, let's pretend it's now. And let's pretend that Roosevelt is the president. Now, he's a dang Democrat liberal, right? And I know I'm stupid enough that I would have fought tooth and nail against Social Security, going, it's communist, it's social, and it is social.
I don't think so. Things were so desperate that you would have to reach out for a life preserver.
Well,
They did anything that the government wanted because they were so desperate.
but thank God he did it. I mean, FDR is a Democrat who's a hero of mine, right?
There are pros and cons about him, but he essentially did what was needed temporarily, but not for the long run.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
About
well, Social Security came into existence in 1935, David. So you're absolutely right,
Yeah.
because we were coming off the Great Depression. I mean, and people were in
people
very
were
sad
hungry.
straits. They were in very bad straits. Yes, exactly.
And the funny thing is, we learned from Ford, Henry Ford didn't want to have he fought tooth and nail not to have a, union. And the funny thing is, people actually died trying to get the union going. They got the union going, and all of a sudden Ford goes, oh, all my employees can now afford to buy a Ford, and it increased the success of the company. The thing is, the truth is, when we all do better, we all do better.
The rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. That's great wisdom, the rising tide. So thank God. I mean, I know people, and I'm sure you do right now. We know somebody. We know one person anyway, who would be out on the street if it wasn't for Social Security. I know a lady, maybe she makes $1,000 a month. I knew a reverend, he's now passed. He was only getting $800 a month, but he made it do somehow. But he also, his wife also got, a retirement. But the point is that without Social Security, a lot of people would either not have, and sometimes they still either decide whether they're going to get their medications or get their. So with what we've given Iraq so far, not Iraq, Ukraine, every veteran in the United States would get $2 million, okay? I don't think a veteran should ever be homeless, and I don't think a veteran should ever go hungry, and I don't think veterans' children should have to pay for education. Our senators and congressmen, their children don't have to pay for education. What kind of crap is that? It says right in the Constitution, you'll not have any laws that make you, above the fray, right?
Yes, right.
So when you were you headed up, the buck stopped with you.
Correct. That's right.
Now, as I said, you seem to be a woman who was you're highly educated and you're an academic, right? So
of sorts. But
well, how does one rise to that position?
Well, I always say I feel like it was a combination of the Protestant work ethic and serendipity, because I was raised, and I do think we're kind of losing this today with the younger generations, but I was raised that you're always supposed to do the best job you possibly could, not only do what was required, but go be above and beyond. And then that way, when there's time for promotion, someone will see you did a great job, and it'll happen. I went to Washington in 1977 to work for Senator Bill Roth, the Roth IRA, that senator.
Oh.
And when Ronald Reagan got elected in 1980, I then went into I was contacted by the Reagan administration. I went into the Reagan administration to run welfare for the country. And then I went back to work for Senator Roth. I worked at the White House for a while Reagan was president. Went back to work with Senator Roth.
Wow.
And then as the staff director of the Government Affairs Committee. And then I went into the George H.W. Bush administration, running welfare and all the social service programs. So it was an expanded portfolio from the Reagan years. Then I went back to work for Senator Roth as his senior advisor, and worked at the Republican Senatorial Committee as political director, ran campaigns for Senator Roth, and worked on campaigns for other Republicans around the country.
Really?
Of course, at the NRSC, when I was there, we had 32 Senate seats up, and I worked with all the Republican candidates across the country. We actually, I have to say this, we picked up 2 seats in the year that Bob Dole tanked terribly for president. It was amazing. No one thought we'd pick up any Senate seats, so I had great staff and worked. The campaigns were really
So
excellent. that year.
you supervised a get out the vote campaign, probably.
Well, that was part of it, but it was more like the Senatorial Committee actually provided advice to the campaigns. We had field staff that went in and worked with the campaigns. I was in constant contact with the campaigns, doing polling, giving them advice, strategic advice, just whatever they needed, David. And sometimes it was helping to get out the vote effort, and other times it was more helping with messaging on ads and that kind of
How
thing.
about allocation of funds?
Well, yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to campaigns about don't waste all your money, which we've seen happen with some of these presidential campaigns already, where tons of money got spent, and then now they're tightening I saw Vivek Ramaswamy just took all his ads down in
Why?
New Hampshire and Iowa. And I saw him interviewed. He just did it 2 days ago, and he said he did it because they're going to focus on grassroots, but it sounds very strange. I mean, you don't take all your TV ads down right before primaries in
Well,
major
here's
states.
my thought. This is what I thought. Vivek, I like Vivek. I think he's very brilliant. He probably thinks he's too young. I don't necessarily. But, and I don't think he's arrogant. I think he's confident. But I think Vivek, you notice Vivek never, ever, ever, never says anything disparaging about Trump. I think they have a handshake behind this whole thing and that he's going to be the vice president. That's my thought.
Oh, you think? Interesting. Hadn't thought about that actually, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. See, other people have the intellect to take care of the other side of things, the facts and the figures. I'm more intuitive. And, I think I could get elected to office because I am a nice guy, and people know that, and they know when you speak from the heart. The problem with a person like me is, if I got in office, I'd have to call David up. What do I do now? Well, even he ran for office once, and he was right before the election. He says, "Oh my God, I hope I don't win." So it's
That's a fact. I said, "Oh my God, if I win, I'll have to go to all these meetings." I don't want to do.
Remember, there's a
that.
guy named Brian. What's Brian's last name? I don't know where he is, but he's had a big beard and everything. But finally, he ran for office 26 times locally, failed like 23 of the 26 times or whatever. But he finally got elected. He says, "Well," he says, "now I can't go. I can't vote on what I think. I have to represent my constituents."
Yeah.
He had statesmanship within
Yes,
his blood.
Right.
It's too bad he was so abrasive. He was abrasive before Trump was abrasive.
Yeah. He had the white beard. I know
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't
He
think of his
cared.
last name either. Yes,
Brian
he did.
something or other.
Yes, in fact,
Hetty.
Hetty, that's it.
That's
Yeah,
it,
Brian
Hetty.
Hetty.
Yeah.
And he really he really cared, but he's like, if a politician, he said, "You got to do this," and the politician did it. He didn't acknowledge that the guy had moved for him. He wanted to be in the fray. He liked the fight, it seemed like. That's my judgment. I could be wrong.
When he was in office, he did a good
Yes.
job. I called him about a problem I had. He went right to it.
Same with me.
So he was.
He's the only one I actually felt so comfortable as a person calling that I called him. I said, "This needs to be taken care of," and it was taken care of that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Hetty. Yeah, we need more Brian Hettys. Yeah, I don't know why he's. I guess he just stepped out of the.
I
whole
haven't
thing,
seen
but-
him around. I mean,
No.
he used to be everywhere.
Yeah,
When I first
and I hope
came
he's
here, yeah.
okay because he took. I remember there was a lady here who started to have dementia, and he took her in, and he and his wife actually kept her
Wow.
at their house for a couple of years before she died.
Impressive.
And this guy's he's an odd. He's from Poughkeepsie too, because he looks like one of the Smith brothers, and Smith brothers.
He does. Those Smith brothers.
And that's where they're from. Smith
Really?
Brothers
Are they
cough
really?
drops are
Oh.
from Poughkeepsie.
Oh, that's
the
funny.
two
I didn't
brothers
know
with the
that.
beards.
That's something.
So when you were at the University of Delaware, did you see our beloved president?
No, because he's a little older than I am, and I was also going to school in the evening because I was in the middle of college when the Vietnam War was raging, and I don't know if you remember or not, but you could get a 2S deferment if you were majoring in education in college. I actually went to college thinking I was going to become an English teacher. Okay, but I was also very practical. And I'd gotten this really good job for the summer at an advertising agency in Wilmington, Delaware. We had a New York office as well. And we were in Wilmington because the DuPont company was a huge client. And I thought, gee, I can either keep this job with the ad agency and go to school in the evening, or I can go back to school where all these guys are now saying they're going to be teachers because they got the 2S deferment. And the job market's going to be flooded with teachers.
Right.
So I opted to stay at the ad agency. And so actually that was probably a really defining moment for my career.
What did you do for the ad agency?
I was a space and time buyer and the copy editor.
The copy. So you write the copy that would go into ads. That means the words.
Yep.
And you space and time. You,
Bought space in magazines and time on radio and TV.
So your English major helped you.
Oh, it did, definitely. Yes, it did. It definitely did.
English major is going to help you no matter what you do.
I know, except now, have you ever looked at the way young people text today?
Yeah.
They don't spell words out. There's no punctuation.
And they
There's
have self-correct, too.
and we're actually losing respect for being grammatically correct,
Yeah.
which I think is a shame. It's like that.
Disciplines are good
Yes,
for us.
yes, and also it's kind of a dumbing down of the whole society
It
if you
is.
allow people to get away with writing things that aren't complete sentences. You know.
Well, it's kind of
See,
like...
when you get away from God, God is right or wrong. When you get away from that and you get into mammon, the pursuit of money, then you lose your perspective. There is no civility because there is no right or wrong. You can, everything is fine. You can do anything you want. That doesn't work out that well, not at all. And that's why we have such a coarse interaction with people and with companies and all that. It used to be, company started with an entrepreneur and he produces a product and he wants that product to be accepted. He thinks it's going to be good for him and good for the end user. And now they go and they move on, and the policymakers come in. The policymakers, we have a policy, and they lose perspective because they get so important. There was a book called The Last 10 Feet of the Sale, and it talked about this company.
Sale is S-A-L-E or
Wonderful,
S-A-I-L?
Wonderful, Mr. Palmer. Very good.
Well, it could be an analogy, S-A-I-L. So it's a good question, S-A-L-E or sale.
The 10 last feet of the sale. And they spoke about the people at the top came up with an idea and they put it into practice. They think it's a very sound idea that's beneficial to everyone involved. Because back down through the management to the actual delivery of the product, and that person has an entirely different understanding of what was started at the top. David Mamet, he wrote a book about how top management gets an idea and they decide they need somebody to help them when they get another tier of management. That tier says, we really need another tier. And by the time they get to the end, nobody is doing what they intended to do in the beginning.
Do you believe that people are... Remember the book, The Peter Principle?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And do you believe that that's true? Because you get a great car salesman, and you say, this guy's selling more than everybody. We're going to make him the manager for sales manager.
But he's not necessarily a good manager.
He may have no talent for that. I mean,
I had a manager, I had a salesman, and he was excellent. And he wanted to be a manager. And I said, you're better off doing what you're doing. No, he wanted to be a manager. So I got an opening. The used car manager left for God knows what, and he wanted to be the used car manager, so I let him be that. And
what happened?
And there was another salesman. He didn't like this other salesman. Well, we used to have cards for used cars, and on the card we put the price of the car, and we'd show it to the customer. Here's the price, and here's the card. And so this new minted used car manager went out to lunch after just taking in a trade. And the salesman that he didn't like sold the car for exactly what he has. And he said, I won't accept it. I won't accept it. You had to accept it. The man sold the car at the price you asked for. And he threw the keys across the room and he said, I don't want to be a manager anymore. But that's unbelievable.
Why didn't he want to sell it for the price he was asking?
What did you say?
Why did he not want to sell the car for the price he was asking?
Because he hated the salesman.
Oh, because he hated the salesman. Oh, that's stupid.
Yeah, petty.
You become a salesman. The reason you become a salesman is you get a piece of the action.
Right.
Better to have 1% of 100 people's salary than have 100% of your salary.
Right.
But if you get that concept, but no, there was that's a whole interesting thing there. So, do you have any having overseen Social Security? Are you approving of the way things are being run now? Is there anything you would change?
Well, in 1995, the Social Security Board of Trustees, and I was on that board when
Yeah.
I was the commissioner, made an announcement to the country that the program was going to be in fiscal straits. At that time, it was supposed to be 2037 or something if changes were made, and here we are. So that was 1995. We're now moving into 2024, so that's almost 30 years. And we've done absolutely nothing to deal with the financial insolvency question. And now the window is closing. And the last trustee report, there'll be a new one coming out for the actuaries in March. And I always read through it to see what it's projecting. But the last one projected that the program would stop taking in enough money to pay for benefits in 2023. And then they'll have to use the trust funds. And we have about $3 trillion in trust funds, which are really bonds. And that's one thing most people don't understand. When they say Congress raided Social Security, they didn't. In the law, it says that any money that's not spent, like say you take in $100 and you pay $25 out in benefits, $75 has to be used to buy these special issue government bonds. And just like with any bond, when you buy a bond, you're giving your money to the government to use for a purpose, right? So that's what's happened. There's been no rating going on, but those bonds will all be used up within a matter of very few years, because there's right now the payout on Social Security this year is going to be $1.5 trillion. You mentioned it was,
1.5 trillion now. So there's 1,000 billion in a trillion.
yes, and so keep in mind, I left the agency in 2007, and at that time we were spending around 600 billion. Okay.
No. Yeah,
I mean,
600
600
billion.
million,
Yeah,
600 million.
Half a trillion.
Half a trillion. And now, what is that? 13 years later? Let me see. I wasn't a math major. What's 7 from 23?
7 from 23 is 17.
So 16 years later, and the payout has more than doubled. And that's very simple math, because all the boomers are retiring. When I was in office at the agency, the first boomers retired while I was there. Now, in the intervening 16 years, tons of boomers have retired. And so that's why the payout has increased so much.
And that's the big fat rat that's in the middle of the snake's belly.
It is. And so here's what happens. So at the time that Social Security, the agency stopped taking in enough to pay benefits on a month-to-month basis a couple of years ago. So they've been dipping in using some of the trust funds. By the time we get to the point where all the trust funds have been expended, they go to the government. The commissioner, like I used to tell Secretary of Treasury, that's my asset from Social Security, and the Secretary of Treasury would say, no, it's a liability. I go, from where you sit, because you have to pay out. I'm the one who brings the bond in and cashes it. The bonds all the money behind the bonds will be gone, and at that point, the agency will only be able to pay about 70% of benefits. And as you know, the payout is based on the Social Security tax. It's not.
So if I live to be David's age, I'll be in trouble.
Yeah. I'll probably be okay, because
You and I are about the same age.
No, I'm older than you.
You're 3 years older than me.
Things could change. You don't know.
No, but
But the only thing is, there's a dwindling replacement
that's
of
it.
people
The
paying
birth rate,
in.
the birth rate is very low, and then we also have that compounded by the fact that after COVID and all this work at home stuff, and the younger generations now who really don't have, I'm generalizing here, but from what you read, don't have as much desire to have a full-time job anymore.
Yeah.
They want to do as little as they can to get as much as they want,
Yeah,
and
so-
realizing that there's joy in work, but they haven't learned that.
And they also probably are doing more work under the table, so to speak, cash
Right,
things
right.
and whatever. So the pay into Social Security becomes, on a relative basis, way less than it was. So it's definitely going to be a problem. And when they get to that point where they've used all the money, like I said, they can only pay 70% of benefits. Now, what do you think? How do you think Social Security recipients across the country are going to react when they're told, "Oh, David, next month you
Well,
only
that's
get
not going to happen.
You only get 70%."
It's not going to happen. The government.
Well,
how much waste is in the government? How much waste? I would pay Istanbul a couple of $1 million just to.
Yeah, we think we can buy
do
peace.
some-
We have for the longest time.
we've spent huge money in.
I had a
foreign-
CIA guy in here said they used to deliver $3 million every month in the back porch of some guy in Pakistan for peace. That's $36 million a year they're giving this guy who had authority in Pakistan.
Yeah, and multiply that times I don't
Look
know
at this.
what.
How about the president of Ukraine? I mail in a check for $32,000 to pay my taxes, and this son of a gun comes up here on the beach and buys a multi-million-dollar house. Who's the president of Ukraine in Vero Beach, Florida? Pays cash for it. Whose money is that? That's our money.
Well, foreign aid. I mean,
What the
there's
hell
always
is
been
going
a
on?
ton of money going into so-called foreign aid. My biggest problem with foreign aid is why do we give it to people who are really our adversaries and definitely not our friends?
Do you know what? No, forget about China. How about this? What's this? Who are the Jews fighting right now? The Hamas.
Yeah,
We're
Hamas.
giving money to Hamas.
Yeah.
What the hell? Let me ask
know-
you this. Reagan was a true leader.
He was.
You worked with him. You were in the
Yes.
White House. You
Yes.
met him multiple times.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And I know what I do, and I think I have intuition as a woman's intuition. Now, you're a woman of intellect, but at the same time, you had to feel this guy out and know you were in the presence of. If truly serving others is royalty, then he had royalty running in his brain.
Oh,
Blood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you probably remember that at that time the press corps tried to imply that he didn't really know what was going on.
I had a
abso-
stepfather who was a Democrat. Said we can't have an actor as the
but
president.
it was absolutely untrue. He would come into meetings, have absolutely no notes, no one sitting next to him whispering anything, and he would engage in the conversation, ask the right questions,
yeah.
remember everything anybody talked about,
Yep.
and refer to it later.
Amazing.
He was truly an amazing person. He was.
Well, they found after he died, they found a lot of notes indicating his intellect was quite strong.
I'll tell you, I was running welfare in his administration. And I remember one day this envelope got delivered from the White House, one of those brown envelopes with the holes in it, like a courier envelope.
Yeah.
And I opened it up, it was for me, and there was a newspaper article about a situation in Medicaid and welfare, and I won't go into it because, but it told the story of how a little girl who had terrible birth defects and issues had. A lot of the community in Ohio responded, gave a whole bunch of money to the mother to help pay for medical treatment and care and everything so the mother could work. And then welfare kicked them off of everything because they exceeded the limit. Anyway, so there was an op-ed about this situation. And then in the side, on the margin, was written, "Joanne, can't we do something about this, RWW?" And I sat there going, who is RWW? And about 20 minutes later, it hit me. Oh my gosh, that's the president, Ronald Wilson Reagan, RWR. I mean, he had actually sent. But the point is, he was so engaged. He reads that op-ed, actually sent it to me in the internal couriers, and I thought, how many other people is
Did
he
you
doing
keep
this
it?
with? Yeah, of course. But it was so funny because I'm like, who is RWR? I mean, I was just like, I don't
The
know.
boss.
I don't know an RWR.
Did you run into him in
know?
the hallways of the White House at times?
No, I never ran into him in the hallways, but I was in a lot of meetings with him.
Oh, with him. Mm-hmm. What an amazing guy.
He was amazing, had an incredible personality.
I became
persona,
a Christian partially
demeanor.
because of him. Because in 1983, he declared that year the year of the Bible. Maybe God honored it, but that's the year I was watching Pat Robertson never really, like, I don't like these screamers on TV. And Pat Robertson was aristocratic. His father had been a senator.
Right,
Like,
right.
okay. And I went, oh, all right. Well, this Jesus might be real. And I got born again in my living room. Now, I want to ask you, do you know that you supplied me with I used to hitchhike back in the 60s. Do you know you gave me my last hitchhiking ride? That's how we met. We met over by Vincent's.
know, yes.
They were rebuilding the parking lot. How did I end up in your car?
Well, they were redoing this is funny because when he talked about walking a while ago, I immediately thought of the day we met because I was pulling into the Miracle Mile, plaza
Yes.
over there where Fresh Market and Dunkin' Donuts used to be and everything, and they were re-blacktopping the whole parking lot, and it had to be like a 98 or 100-degree day. It was unbelievably hot. And I look out my car window and I see this gentleman in a suit walking across the parking lot, but realizing he can't walk on the parking lot.
All of a sudden I'm here because I'm like,
he was
how
going
do
to
I
have to go way around the whole perimeter to get where he was going. And I thought, this is ridiculous. It's so hot. And I couldn't imagine how hot it was coming up from that fresh, blacktop. So I pulled over and I said, would you like me to take you wherever you're going? It was you.
She picked me up. See that?
Yeah. And he gets in the car. I'm sure he thought I was weird, but it was just too hot to be walking in a coat and tie.
But then you said then you recognized me, I think.
I did, and I had not. I although I'd been coming to Vero my whole life, I had not lived here till just a few months before I saw you in the parking lot. And I
and
said,
you had a white Lexus.
Yes, and I said, Acura.
Acura. Okay.
I wish it was a Lexus, but no. And I said, oh, you're Rhett Palmer, mayor of the airwaves, because I've seen the billboards, And then we started talking. You asked me what I did, and then you asked me to come on your show. And
then handed you off to this guy who had you on with great frequency.
Yes.
But I will say this. In a way, I've done a disservice for you today. See, we came in here and we're blah, 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 which is nice, live. What I want to do is sit down where I don't, when I don't talk? When I've got a microphone and I record it, then it becomes totally about that person. I want to do that interview with you. We'll put this one on the podcast. It'll go around. It's on the streaming right now. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and all that stuff. But I think I want to honor you and honor my listeners with not being flip and having, using it as much just to have a conversation like we're on The View. Because you have a lot of insight. It's amazing, the position. Did you ever get married?
I did.
Do you have children?
I have one son.
Wonderful. How old is he?
He's 35.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, my husband and I met in college when we were 19. We did not get married until we were 36. It was a long courtship.
Wow.
Yeah, when we went in for pastoral counseling before we got married, the minister said, now, a lot of people get divorced today, and so it's really important that you know each other and understand what you're getting. How long have you two known each other?
And 15 years.
And David goes 17, and the minister thinks he means months. And I'm like, no, that's years. And he goes, oh, I guess we can skip the getting to know you part. I guess you know.
Why do you think you didn't get married for so long?
I don't know. I wasn't interested in getting married. I don't think he was either. He was working in different places around the country. My career, I was real focused on that,
Yeah.
But we were best friends. Got together every New Year's. If you've ever seen the movie When Harry Met Sally, that was our love story.
Really?
Basically. It was so like that. It was incredible.
Now, is he still alive?
He is.
Oh,
he is.
Are you still married?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I
you
am.
are? Oh,
yes,
wonderful.
38 years. Yes.
I've never met your husband. You have to bring him in sometime for show and tell.
Yep.
So 38 years, congratulations. But if you add on, really, according to the Bible, though, the moment a woman or a man enters the other person's tent.
Okay, so it's 57 years in those terms. It's
The
a long
first,
time.
if you made love when you were younger, yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
That's the marriage before God, But we do need to make a public thingamajig. But anyway. So, did I leave anything out for today? Because I know he's biting at the bit to go. He always is. Well, I used to have him on from 8 to 10. He stayed for the full 2 hours. When I moved it up to 9, suddenly he thinks he can just go at 10 instead of staying for the whole thing.
He thinks he doesn't work for Mr. Palmer. Amazing. Amazing.
All right, so I guess that's it for today.
It was a pleasure being with you. I really enjoyed it. And David, always
it
great
is
to
truly
see
a
you.
pleasure
I
being
have to
with
say,
you. Yeah,
always great.
Yeah, I want to
Always
thank you
great.
both. And today's broadcast is brought to you by Center for Advanced Eye Care. Eye doctors and surgeons that genuinely care about your eye care. It's where my mom went when she was alive. It's where I go. Center for Advanced Eye Care, I'm Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airways, on the air for 29 years now. I think this year we'll make it 30 come summer. Anyway, Noah, take us away. I'm going to press the button.